Hello. Hi. I wanted to say thank you for giving me space about ordination and for allowing me to reflect internally. To be honest, all that really happened was internal conflict. And that was something that needed to be understood before continuing on a path that I would walk for the rest of my life. And so this past couple of weeks, I've been able to allow some movement and change within. And I was only able to do that through the grace of Sangha, and to be blessed and held and supported by all of you. And becoming a monastic wasn't just about becoming a nun, but accepting a master, surrendering to a master, surrendering to a teacher, committing to all of you. And so, I really got to feel that and experience that recently. And so becoming a nun isn't really taking up something, but it's stripping down. And it's this just pure surrender and saying, I have a very, 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 very ordinary mind. And what a wonder it is to be blessed with the true Buddha Dharma, because that is the only thing that can liberate me. So when I first received the Kuan Yin empowerment, oh boy, it was hard. I'd walk up to my altar, my makeshift altar that I have at home that I put together. And when I begun my practice, I just cried and I cried and I cried for like weeks. It's like I was facing this mirror and it said, here are all your uglies. Look at it right now. I was like, oh my gosh, I had a box of tissues next to my altar because I'm trying to do this meditation, but I can't get through it without crying. And so that's how it was in the beginning. It was tough. It was very uncomfortable, and I really did not want to push through. But that crying, that was already a release. So I knew it was working. And so I immediately just wrote a song about Kuan Yin, and I would like to share it with you guys today. Because she's teaching me, or Kuan Yin, he or she, is what true refuge means. And what does that mean for me to give in order to take refuge? Kuan Yin, I'm calling out to you. I've got such deep affinity for a heart full of humility, oh yeah. Kuan Yin, I'm calling out to you. Your eyes, they see beyond the lies, to uproot our suffering and all our cries. Kuan Yin, I'm calling out to you. I've got this knowing inside of me. Your truth is bright, purity, oh yeah. Calling to you, Kuan Yin. Calling to you, calling out to you. We've got such deep affinity for a heart full of humility. Oh yeah, calling to you, Kuan Yin.
The atmosphere is changing now. Pure land beings have appeared. The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattvas here. The atmosphere is changing now. Pure land beings have appeared. The evidence is all around. Buddha's Bodhisattvas here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Wisdom surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your grace. Your power surrounds us. We're the reason you came. Grant your blessings, your name. Bestow your mercy. The power of your great vow can empower us now. Bestow your mercy. Great holy beings, fall fresh on us. We need your presence. Your kingdom come, your will be done, here as in heaven. Your light surrounds us. 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 light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
Your light
Surrounds us.
Your light
Surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
Your light surrounds us.
Your light surrounds us.
Surround.
Your light surrounds us.
Your
Your light surrounds us.
Your light.
Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us.
Your light surrounds us.
Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds us. Your light surrounds
Your light surrounds us. That song was, the music was adapted, but I think in one sitting, we wrote the lyrics. And so we're having a good time. Can somebody give me a blue book? So those times that we're beginning our meditation practice, and it's something more than just thinking, or it's something more than just analyzing. There's a space that we enter into where the rudimentary things fall away. And it's like an updraft. And that's what brings peace to the mind. You can't just bring peace to the mind. But you can allow a kind of peace to descend. And one does that in their willingness to surrender. So meditation teaches us something about surrender, something about not fighting, something about not competing, something about the tranquility of yielding. You know, we always think we can fix everything if we just think about it long enough. But this is going against that stream. And sometimes it can be scary because in our mind, using prajna, using language prajna, we start with a notion of what certain words or concepts mean to us. And surrender implies defeat. But suppose surrender implied victory for us. Then we would try to figure out how to surrender. But because in our bizarro world, it means defeat, we have a really hard time with surrender. And it's not that surrender does not have power, but that we cannot perceive the power of it because of the blockage of our mind in our understanding of what surrender is. So throughout the teachings of the various saints from whom traditions have emerged, the talk is all about the same thing. On one hand, we're trying to actively get rid of and abandon self. That's what we say. But on the other hand, we do everything that tries to maintain a sense of self and an elevated self, the top dog self, the one that wins self. And while we talk about, cushy words like loving kindness and compassion and equanimity, throughout our day, we're really only trying to figure out how to win, how to get ahead, how to be the shining one, how everything that we do unnaturally, we call natural. And so we have to flip it around. That's really what this practice is all about. And of course, practice is practice. It's not the accomplishment. Practice is practice, accomplishment is accomplishment. And it would be a shame if we practice our whole lives and never accomplish the goal. There's no other discipline that would be acceptable, except in spiritual practice, because in spiritual practice, we always say, well, I'm trying. But as Yoda said, there is no try. You either do or you don't do. And this particular training that we call Buddhist training is one that helps us to take up that kind of mind that there is no try, we either do or we don't do. And it helps us to look clearly at our thoughts, our speech, our action, until we get to the point that we can acknowledge to ourselves, maybe not to other people in the beginning, but acknowledge to ourselves that we didn't try, or we did exactly what we wanted to do. We just didn't want you to know we did that. We did it exactly what we did exactly what we wanted to do. And we start to find that we have such a very deep problem with inner integrity. And we live in a country where euphemism is king. So we learn how to say things without saying it, and how to do things without it looking exactly like we're doing that, and how to be a certain way because we believe in fake it till you make it. And that spills over into our desire to be really the best that we can be. Because the world has a certain standard. And many times that standard runs afoul of what we call virtue. But the enlightened ones call the awakened mind. So I want to talk a little bit about that awakened mind today, because we're moving towards that. We're moving towards that mind that doesn't have to scrap. I came from a neighborhood and I went to school all the way across town. DC is only 10 square miles. I thought that was big until I moved to other places. But we had to go from northeast to southwest. And every neighborhood you pass through, sometimes we were poor, so it cost 10 cents to ride the bus. And there were 6 of us, all of us couldn't ride the bus every day. So we took turns riding or walking, but we had to walk all the way from northeast to southwest. On the bus, you were safe, but when you were walking, you weren't that safe. So you had to be observant. You had to pass through the different neighborhoods. You had to time your departure right so that you would hit certain neighborhoods before certain kids came out, and hit other neighborhoods after certain kids left. So it was precarious. We tried to explain to our parents how it is, and they would just say, well, life is tough. It's tough for us too. You have your own particular challenge, but you have to figure that out. And that's what the Dharma says. Each one of us has our own particular challenge, but we have to figure it out. We have to figure how to work it out. We have to figure how to work it out, and not in such a way that it does not create for us more problems. Usually when we figure out what to do, we're thinking about how to solve this problem that's right here in front of me. But we often can't connect the consequence. So that's what we call karma. It's taking an action and understanding that action has a consequence. It doesn't have a consequence later. The consequence is co-arising with the action. Now, if we think it comes later, we can say, well, you have to take care of today, and I'll worry about tomorrow. But if we really, really understood that the action that I'm taking at this moment has a corresponding fruit that is planted at the moment I take that action, and is ripening, and some take a long time to ripen, some take a little time to ripen. But it is ripening, the fruit is born in the action. It would make us be a little bit more circumspect about the action that we take. So we talk about the 3 times, past, present, and future. But if we talk about the past is not present. So that's already gone. That's like a memory. If we talk about the future hasn't come, but the future is being born right here in the present moment. And that's how we move through our day, thinking, I am birthing the future right now. So sometimes we want things to improve in the future, but the way we address them in the present doesn't lead towards a less frightful future. And if we could pause So now I'm talking about the rudimentary benefits of meditation now. If we could just pause at that moment, just as we're starting to take off, because that taking off is me trying to protect me, or me trying to defend me, or me trying to explain me to someone that I think doesn't understand me, or me, but there is the me. That's the first uptick, is how I protect myself. Me not wanting to be understood, me understanding that I may not have been skillful enough, but how do I cover that over now? Me trying to change the scenario because I've now acted and I've seen what harm is caused. But seeing the harm, it's too late. The future is the present action that we take. So we have this mind that we cultivate towards doing no harm. The Buddha said to one group, if you do something unintentionally, then there is not karma. Said that, let's say that I'm driving down the street and a child runs out between two parked cars. And I don't see her fast enough to stop. And I hit her and I kill her. Then one could say that was unintentional death. And one might say there is no karma, negative karma attached to that because it wasn't intentional. But suppose I was going down that street and it's a neighborhood and it's 15 miles an hour and I'm going 25 miles an hour and I hit her. There was still no intention. But there was an intention to speed. Or let's say that I was tuning my radio at that time and I wasn't fully paying attention. Or I was thinking. My mind was like sort of somewhere else and I wasn't that present with my driving. Or, so you can take one situation and if you really examine it, you can go 10 different places with that one scenario. Therefore, he said you should have this mind because you may not think that deeply. Just think, if I commit a negative action in thought, in speech, in body, that there will be a negative result. So now I'm thinking about karma. That's a fallback on me. I'm thinking about karma. But she's dead. So there was a negative result for somebody. Oh, and then I would have to live with the guilt of it. Even if I don't let you know that I was guilty. I had one of my sister's son is your nephew? Okay, so a nephew, and he was a fireman, well decorated fireman, and he'd been in the military, and was a hero in the military of whatever he had to do, and but a lot of what he had experienced had hurt his mind, and so he began to drink, and he became an alcoholic in one night he hit somebody and he killed them. And he never got over it. It was just covered up. So he didn't get charged. His buddies showed up on the scene. He knew everybody there. He knew the officers. He knew the fire crew. He knew the EMTs. He knew everybody. And he was loved by everybody. And it got caught. I didn't even know about it until after he died. Our family never talked about it. My mother never told. My sister never told me. And then one day my sister told me about it. She said, well, what do you think about that? And then we had a long talk about it. We don't know what action we take that's going to create harm. And so we try to build a life, try to build a mind that is very, very cognizant of the possibility of harm. One of the biggest ways that we harm others is with our speech. That's why, of the 10 right actions, 4 of the 10 relate to speech. Because it's by our speech we set things into motion. And we don't think it so much because sticks and stones, break my bones, but words will never hurt me, but words do. And then we get so sensitive about it, which is our reason for practicing non-attachment. Because those feelings that we have set our tongue a-wagging. And on the basis of that, we create the dramas that we see in our everyday life. I think I shared that in all the years are rolling on now, I'm losing count. 98, 08, 18, 19, 24, 25. It's only 25? Oh, that's pretty good. Maybe time's rolling back. But in the 25 years that that Kay and I journeyed together, we never had a fight. 25 years. So it's hard for me, and we're very different, as you all know. All 3 of us, we are completely different. But we figured out early on that if we were going to be together and we were so different, we were just going to have to let each person be who they were. And that was the commitment that we made to each other. So if one was ranting or stomping or upset about something, we just let them be upset by themselves. We didn't try to not make them not upset, because you have a right to feel however you feel, and how's that working for you? But we didn't throw we didn't inflame, we didn't throw fuel on the fire, but we also didn't take it up. And it worked wonderfully for us. Later, when we could talk about something, later could be a week later, it could be a month later. Kay and I are talking about some things right now, that we never talked about all of those years. And we're able to they've really been covered over, whatever infractions there were, they've really been covered over because we could just sit and talk about them. I thought, I didn't know you felt that way. But she said, I didn't know you felt that way. And we could see that the power is not in the actions that we take then, but the power is in the response to whatever is happening. And so this meditation that we do, it's setting aside covetousness and grief for the world. Covetousness and grief. Both covetousness and grief. What we want, what we desire, what we're reaching for, what we long for, what we enjoy, and that which brings us pain and suffering and sorrow. And we learn to hold both of them equally. And that's the first practice. That has to be practiced off the pillow. But if I'm real sensitive, then I'm going to think you're real sensitive. My sensitivity becomes your sensitivity. And if I don't think you're handling it in a way that would make me feel comfortable, then I'm going to try to help. But we have to learn how to let things be. This goes for all of us. Goes for me. Of course, I have to say, if I'm every place has its order, you know. So in a household, parents who let their children just do whatever because they're little grown-ups, then they're going to have a hard time in life. So if you have a job, do your job. I don't mean don't do your job. So sometimes you have to maintain order, restore order, or create order until everybody in the household gets it. And you know what happens when you have children in a family? You know, they don't all come at once. So one comes, great. The second one comes, a little bit of problem there until they get copacetic. About the time they're copacetic, another one comes and it starts over again. And you get those three in line and another one comes and you start all over again. And we have a responsibility to just maintain the course. Stay the course with what we already know. Don't devolve to the youngest one, but give them something to emulate. And if we can practice this with husbands and wives, with nuns living in close quarters, if when we meet someone on the street or on our job, we can recognize that they may not have had the opportunity for that kind of training, which brings a certain kind of, it's not self-control. We say self-control, but it's really not that. It really gives a certain kind of peace. Panyadeepa and I were very different in that regard. He would say, Panyawati, better to not do a thing if you're going to get upset when you do it. I had the view, if it's the right thing, do it. And if you get upset, just work on your upsetness until you get it resolved. I thought my way was better. Now I think his way is better. Now I think his way is better. But that puts you at a dilemma then, doesn't it? If we have to just not do something that we know should be done simply because we can't handle ourselves. It gives us some encouragement to really know ourselves and to really put forth the effort to do the things we say we believe we should do. He said all worldly Dharma is Buddha Dharma. And we talk about getting into these high states. But we don't get into them somewhere else. We get into them right here. The gateway is right here. The only way that we can get into these states is from exactly where we are when we encounter the vicissitudes of life. And so all of us have them. All of us have these issues of life. And all of us have our aversion to them, but he says no point in having your aversion to them. We heard some news about LA Insight closing. LA Insight was, I think, maybe when Jack went out to the West Coast, that might have been the second center that was opened by Trudy, who is Jack's wife. It's a very wonderful center. I used to go out there all the time and teach. And she was so kind to me because she only invited me when she wasn't there. I think I only met her one time, and I met her on Jack and I were meeting, talking about something, and she would call. I could go there when she wasn't there and teach, and then I'd stay in her house. And she was so kind, and there was such big, people in mindfulness stature and everything. And I took it as such an honor. And so when I heard that they, became insolvent and closed the center, I think maybe a week or 2 weeks ago or something like that, and she was sharing it. And but I listened to what she said. She said everything changes, and that the dissolution, the dissolving of something creates a way for something new. So she said, we're trying to regroup and something will emerge, but different than what it was before. We're not trying to recreate the same thing. And there was people made comments and so forth. And one comment said, well, who's at fault? Who's to blame? Because people always look for someone to blame because they really don't understand causality. And we really do get attached to things, even good things we should not get attached to. Because we lose, when I say the freshness, I mean the opportunity for the evolution of things. Wanting something like in the old way. Sometimes don't want the old way, but also don't want the new way either. So we're like in limbo, don't know what we want. And that's a kind of energy that prevents moving forward. So we can get stuck in comparing what is versus what was. And we will be like in quicksand. But when we have an attitude of expectation for what can be created now, then we have no idea. Said eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, it hasn't even entered your heart, the good things that are possible. And so that's where we find ourselves. And what we create depends upon what we are made of. So we better go back and do some housekeeping. And we've been doing a really good job because we've stirred up a lot of dust. And we think that that's a bad thing, but I'm here to tell you that it's not a bad thing. It's going under the under the cabinets and cleaning behind the curtain. It's all of those kinds of things. And it can be a little bit painful, because we don't want to see ourselves that way. Sometimes we just don't want to see what is happening, or sometimes we just don't want to let something go. Or sometimes we don't want to bring in something new. Sometimes we just like to be comfortable. Sometimes I was in a little storefront church, when I left the Baptist church and found out there were some people over there who were having these kinds of experiences I was having, and Holy Ghost filled, and jumping and shouting and kicking over the chairs, putting their hands on a hot radiator, falling, hitting their head on the concrete, and they were like, none of it hurt them. They were like, I'm like, what is this? But I was, it was so different. But I found something so wonderful in the Baptist church, as long as it filled me up. But when I began to overflow, I needed another container. And I got another container. Sometimes we're growing and we're outgrowing our container. But our container has been a safety for us. Our container has nurtured us. It has held us. It has consoled us. And we know we're outgrowing it. And those breeches that used to fit me when I was 6, they no longer fit at 16. And they look ridiculous at 26. But we are afraid to step into the unknown. We want the promise of it, but the stepping into it, not so much. I'm going away next week in 10 days. I'm going back to California. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. I'm so looking forward to it. I went out and bought, part of our preliminary practices is not only 100,000 prostrations, but it's also 100,000 water offerings. Prostrations, I love that because there's something in the submission, the bending of the body that breaks down one's conceit, breaks down one's ego. And after 100,000, I wish it probably be in pretty good shape. But the water offerings, not so much. Because when I go to do the water offerings, there's a visualization they have to do for every cup of water, for every offering. That takes a little bit of time. There's something you have to say that takes a little bit more time. So it could take a long time to do 100,000 of them. And but this year I made last week or last month, I made the commitment to do the 100,000 water offerings. So I bought 100 bowls. They're little bowls, but 100 bowls. And it's something I'm doing because it takes my body to do it, and it takes my time to give it. So it's not exactly what I expect to get out of it. It is what I'm willing to give to it. And so, so I plan to do 100. I'm saying, with all my good intentions, to do 100 4 times a day. It's still going to take me a gabillion years to do 100,000 water offerings at that rate. I may never get them all done in this life, but who knows? I may have done 990,000 in previous lives. So cumulative, I may not have that many left to do. Who knows? So that's the way I'm approaching it. In the beginning, I approached it from a whole different perspective. But you see what I'm saying? I'm saying this is how we shift in our capacity to do things. So a lot of these practices are practices. Do you think that when I hit 100,000 water offerings, that something fantabulous is going to happen? Some joint dispensation from heaven is gonna hit me? No, it's not about that. It's about us developing the tenacity and the ability to make a vow and to keep our vow, to make a great wish of goodness towards others and to be able to keep it in the minute when they acting like they don't want to receive goodness from me. It's about, it's about that. These are practices that help us shift our minds, the way the mind inclines, and shifts our corresponding behaviors until it becomes natural to it becomes natural to offer mercy rather before incrimination, before blame, and that one can be at ease and just look at where they've fallen short at something instead of so much shame. And in this way, we balance out our mind and we live at ease in this world, and others live at ease around us. And it's this entering into a natural way of living like that. It's not like we get all holy when we come to the Dharma hall, but it's this natural way of living, considering others, before oneself, considering others equal to oneself, considering others as oneself, that we forget about ourselves. And in that process, there is a natural goodness that emerges. And when that natural goodness emerges, other faculties awaken in us. We can't wake them up just by saying, hey, wake up. We can't wake them up that way. But we allow them to waken when we enter into our natural goodness. So in the beginning, you teach a child, like, I think the first word they probably learn is no, because that will hurt them, that's dangerous, that's whatever. And we give them some parameters, what we can do and what we shouldn't do, what we can do freely. We give them some ways of learning how to share with others. We give them some straight up common sense training. It starts with look both ways before you cross the street. And look, if the traffic's going like this, look to the left first. Because some will step off and look that way, but the traffic is coming this way. So we even have to teach them which way to look first. And then sometimes we don't really see the benefit of the lesson, or we just couldn't hear it. And so we have to learn some things. By example, because fire looks beautiful and you want to touch it. And they say, don't touch, hot, hot. I don't know what hot is until I experience hot. Unless I see somebody touch it and they burn up in flames and they're screaming, then I get the idea like maybe I don't want to touch it. But if I haven't seen that, witnessed that, then I might think that that's beautiful and something to be grasped. And spiritual trainings are the same way. If we could take them like that, rather than rules and obligations and duties and even to see the beauty in rituals. I mean, we have some rituals we hope people don't do without. Like brushing their teeth every morning, washing their face at least. So there's nothing inherently wrong about ritual, unless you're just going through the ritual without any cognizance of the benefit. Still, it'd be good to do the ritual. Something's better than nothing. Because sometimes just by continually doing something, one begins to get something from it. And it's the kind of self-discipline. That's what I'm talking about today. I confess, I always say it's not my fault. I'm pretty sure I was male in my last life because I don't like a lot of cheatsy things. I mean, I like them. I just don't like them for me. But I like them. I like looking at a nice dress, a beautiful red dress because I liked red. I like looking at those things. I just don't want it for me though. And my husband would always say, "Why don't you go shopping?" I'm like, "I don't need anything." He said, "Just go. You don't have to need it. Just go buy something nice, because he liked arm candy. But that's his issue. If I liked arm candy, maybe he wouldn't have been on my own." And so I just left him with that. Here and there I would try to do something because I understood there are things I wanted him to do that he didn't want to do. Sometimes he did them. And so, we try to get along. But I never saw the point in making up the bed. Never. Because it's my room. Nobody's going in there but me. And I'm going to get right back in it and have to mess it up. And so why bother? Why bother? And it wasn't until last year. Now, Kay likes everything neat. If she allowed smoking in her house, every time you flicked your cigarette, she would be wiping out the ashtray. She's that kind. She likes everything meticulous. She never bothered me about my bedroom other than closing the door. That's all she would do, just close the door. She couldn't say. And I loved her room. She keeps her door open. And it's so beautiful. And she has all these dainty kind of things all around. I'm like, gotta dust that stuff, so I don't want it, but it's just so pretty and everything in there. So when I want to take a look at something pretty, I go look at in her room. My room, not so pretty. But I decided it's been a year and a half now, since or a little bit longer, since when Pani Deepa got sick. I would try to keep my room neater and I'd make my bed. And now, as soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm making the bed, I'm fluffing the pillow. I only read about fluffing the pillow because I read a thing on dust mites that said you should fluff your pillow every morning to shake off the dust mites. I'm like, I don't think that's real. But anyway, I fluffed the pillow, And now I like coming into my room. I'm working on another pile now, of straightening up some things. But I'm liking it because I'm feeling a sense of orderliness around me. Something I like, don't touch my piles. I know where everything is, so don't clean up anything. I know what's in this pile and I know what's in that one. But now I'm finding a way of orderliness that I found interesting. So we can change. We don't have to say that's just who I am. That's just how I am. We should endeavor to change. And all these practices simply do that. So I had a master that said one time, everybody went to her because she was so extraordinary, had extraordinary powers, extraordinary. And if you saw that and you were moved by that, you want to study with her. So she always had people clamoring to study. And there's very few that she would accept. And then the few that she accepted, she'd turn around to us and say, Just be ordinary. Just be ordinary. And she was letting us know that there is that we have an extraordinary capacity, that we actually can come into this world as human beings, but we can leave as awakened ones. The next rung of evolution starts here. We don't get there and start it. The evolution starts here. And this is the path that we're on. And we're struggling and trying to press into it, but you can't do it that way. It is a path of surrender. And in that surrender, first, it becomes puzzling. Then we start to recognize that somehow it seems to work. But I don't know if I want to work it all the time because I like me. But then later on, that me, one starts to feel a little uncomfortable about. So we become self-conscious because we recognize that we have an inner conflict. Before, there's no conflict. If I'm mean, I'm just mean. If I'm nice, I'm just nice. No conflict. But then it's mean and nice jumbled up together, producing some conflict. And we keep working at it. And then we find out that first we get saccharine. Saccharine is saying all the sweet things, all the nice things, because like that's the new me. That's who I am now. And then we find out that that's false because we start more and more light starts shining on us. We start to find out that's false. That's like people pleasing, or look at me, I'm such a good person, or all those kinds of things. All of these are steps in our evolution. And then after a while, we get to the place that we can say something, honestly, but we felt bad after we said it. And we didn't say it in a harsh way, but to just have to say it. I mean, I have to actually say it. I have to actually tell the truth about this. I have to, because it's hard to do. But then we find that we can do it. And sometimes to tell the truth, we have to have a little energy with it to help us tell the truth because it's hard for us, you know. So sometimes we have to like pull up some of our old stuff and sort of like get mad to tell the truth, or get a little force with it to be able to speak the truth. Then we find out, keep going, that we don't have to. We can just say it. And then you gotta bear the repercussions of others who haven't, who are stuck in their feelings when they hear it, even though you weren't talking to them. But when they hear it, then you have to deal with that energy. So you got to get stronger, that you can bear being misunderstood. I mean, these are all the steps that we go through. Some of you are going through different ones right now, 2 or 3 of them at one time. But he's saying, look at this with awareness and see the shift that's occurring. And it doesn't mean that we say, well, I'm doing the best I can do. That's all I got, but it's saying, just look at it. Don't judge it, but do name it and just watch it. And keep feeding your mind with the principles of goodness. And then after a while, you'll be over in that category. You won't even know that you're there. You won't know. Sometimes people will tell you, but you can't listen to them. Because you listen to them, then you start to get prideful. Yeah, I know. And actually, it's not even really good to praise others a lot. It just says, be praiseworthy. Live so that others speak highly of you. But don't be looking for praise from people. And then you won't think it's something that you have earned. You will think that you're just returning to your natural self. That self that is at the heart of who you are. But we have to go through all these stages, all these steps. We can go through them fast, we can go through them slow, zip, or we can linger and hang out here for a while. But as we start to move into meditation, I want you to get this idea of ease and not the excuse-itis ease, but thinking at the root of my being, I am one of goodness and capacity. Not in a prideful way, but that you're just trying to uncover that. And the way that that gets uncovered is every step we take, every word we say, every action we commit, every thought that we think and act upon in our mind. So we could say we're practicing 24/7 in that sense. Then when you go to sit down to meditate, it's almost like sometimes, particularly with music, first chord, and Panyawadi has left the building. So already there, or so close to it, that one can easily make this shift. Covetousness and grief, setting it aside. Setting aside both covetousness and grief for the world. So they're talking about setting aside something, and yet they're talking about with applied and sustained thought. Now, how you set stuff aside and you're doing applied and sustained thought, it starts to sound a little wonky, doesn't it? And so we're trying to like set stuff aside and concentrate, and it's not all fitting together. But he gives us a picture, an idea. Then what would that applied and sustained thought be? And that's not a question that I'm asking you. That's a question that you're asking yourself. What would my mind be on? If you can't just drop all thought, then let it be on something that is wholesome. But he said, setting aside covetousness and grief for the world. So if our mind is on something pleasant, it's usually something that we're reaching for, something that we want, right? So we get introduced to certain principles, and those are the things that we can hold on to when we sit. Because if I'm thinking about something that I want, then maybe that gives me like a good feeling, maybe I would think at that time about, rather than something that I want, I'll think about how wonderful it would be if you could go to families that are less fortunate than you, if may they have the prosperity in their life, may they have the support that allows them to have the life I'm living. So now there's the life that you're living that you recognize is a good thing, but you're wanting it for them. And let your mind go in those kinds of ways. And it puts that goodness or that pleasantness not so close up on you, like what's in it for you, but you're still enveloped in it. Or you're thinking of something like a correction, like a correction that you need for yourself. And instead of thinking, oh, I've got to do better at that, or I'm always like this and I don't want to be like this. Maybe you could take the instruction in a different way. I remember I was going with a guy, and he was married. He'd been separated for 5 years. I don't consider that married. You know, I mean, he wasn't with her, hadn't been with her, and so I felt like he was fair game. And so, you know, we started dating and so forth. And then a little while later, ran into his old wife, and he told me one day, he said, you know, a, a, a husband never forgets their first wife. It's almost like their child bride, you know, and they think of them as theirs, you know, and oh, that's a strange conversation to be having, you know. But I didn't think that much about it. You know, we've got our life, we've got our cars, we got our business, we got, you know, we got everything, and we're just going smoothly along. And then one day he tells me, I'm thinking, you know, that we should try to see if we can make the marriage work. And I went crying to my pastor about it. And I said, when he was a GS1, and the GSs go up high numbers, I forget what it is now, 20 something or something. And he was a GS1. I came along and, you know, and I brought him into my world, and basically I made him. That was my complaint. That's what I'm saying. And then she comes along, now that he's something, and she wants him back. So my pastor said, and this is how I'm telling you how you can just look at how you think. Sometimes the ways we think, they're so self-serving. She said, well, she said, do you have a comb? I said, yeah. And she took the comb and she set it on the piano. She said, whose comb is that? I said, it's mine. She said, if you went away and came back 10 years later and that comb was still sitting there, whose comb was that? I said, mine. She said, exactly. And she walked away. Meeting over, interview over. It just meant you go think about that. And I did. So then I said, well, she ain't no help. Let me see what the Bible say. I opened up the Bible. I just did it and to read, you know, some almost like that. And I opened to a verse, a scripture in Proverbs, putting my finger on it. And it said something like something about the harlot, you know, and how her feet, she's like a flame, and to lie with her, your feet go down the fire or something. It was really bad. And I said, I'm not that. I'm not a harlot. You know, but that's what it took to shake me up, to not be hating her and him because they were, and then after I read that, I said, I yield. And I said, you go back. And then I was done. I put this picture on my pillow, hugged it all night. The next day I opened the window and threw that picture in the trash. And I went on with my life. That's the way I did it. You know, and that's how quick you can get over something if you want to. You know, when I was convinced that I didn't know anything about karma. I just looked at the facts and said, I got myself into this situation, and now I accept. I'm out. And that's the way I did it. I did end up marrying him later. and being with him for 20 some years. But I said, don't come knocking on my door until you're ready, willing, able, available. And he did. He said it was like a memory, wanting to reclaim something. He said, but when I went back, I remember why I left. They just, you know, and we got married secretly. Because already this was big in the church. Everybody's talking, and every Sunday there's a sermon on Diane. I was Diane, sermon on Diane. And ain't nobody else doing nothing around here. You gotta have a sermon on me every Sunday. No, so we snuck and got married. I'll deal with the church later. We snuck and got married. I mean, well, not snuck, but we sort of snuck and got married. I get a phone call. It's my pastor. She says, when I was in prayer this morning, the Lord spoke to me and said, what you did, that still doesn't make it right. That's all. That still doesn't make it right. So I go and I tell him, I said, that was Sister Tate. She said that when she was in prayer, the Lord spoke to her and said something that I did still doesn't make it right. So I said, okay, what are we gonna do? We hugged each other and cried all day. And we decided next one we're going down and annul the marriage. I'll just go to the judge. We did it by justice of the peace. I'll just go see the judge and just tell him that this is what I believe, and we just end this. Maybe another life we hook up, but I'm done with this. And we get up the next morning and we're getting dressed. Phone rings. She said, now it's okay. And she didn't know that we had gotten married, and she didn't know what decision we came to, but that was my yield point right there. All the rest I was thinking about how to cajole God, how to please somebody, how to, but that's when I came to the end of me. That's what I'm saying. And so that's where we have to come to in this walk, to step out of the me that we know, the me that we are. It takes that level of surrender. Oh, it's 126. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. But I wanted to close with a song. We have to understand how we got here. We didn't just pop up in our mother's belly as a result of some action here. That there was an existence that left the footprint of karma that created the condition for our arising. So it's not by chance. Who we are is what we have been. That's that law of karma. And when we understand it, we know that there is an ending of karma. And the true journey of a Buddhist is to find the end of karma. Where there's no arising, no ceasing. Doesn't mean we become nothing and that everything is nothing. It's just that we're not this burdened down being. We find a liberty and a freedom here to live this life and to help others. So if the choir would come and close us out today. I want to thank those of you that helped me yesterday. It was really nothing bad. I just, sometimes the sun, too much light bothers me, and I sort of have two worlds going on. So I have something inner going on, and then I have an outer, and I hear too many sounds and too many voices, and it throws me off a little bit. And that's all that it was. But so, thank you. Down there. Easy this week, right?
There's a reason.
There's a reason
Behind your birth.
behind your birth.
It's not by chance.
It's not by chance.
You're here on earth.
You're here on earth.
Who you are.
Who you are is how you have been. The law of karma tirelessly spins.
Nature's law.
Nature's law
Is perfect and just.
is perfect and just.
With a cause.
With a
The effect
cause.
is cast.
The effect is cast.
Though in life
No one escapes pain. This sad human state need not always remain. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day.
look inside your heart.
Look inside your heart,
And you will find.
and you will
A
find
nature that.
a nature
Is
that
pure and kind.
is pure and kind.
Let your heart.
Let your heart be noble and true. Let your mind be calm and stable too. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day. Break free from this cycle that binds. Leave your earthly selfish concerns behind. Be a Buddha in your thoughts, deeds, and ways, and surely you'll be in pure land one day. And surely you'll be in pure land one day.